What's up, squad? Today I wanted to talk to you. I got enough submissions for how to hold and shoot a handgun. So today I wanted to go over, despite the fact that it's balmy, you can barely see out of these goggles, or sorry, these glasses inside. We're going to go over how to see your target, how to grip the handgun, and how to shoot more accurately. So, first off, this is not a real firearm. This is an Airsoft Glock 17 Gen 4, and we are going to take a look at gripping a firearm today in a more practical shooting application through this lens. Now, obviously, the safety for handling firearms is exactly the same, but today I want to show you how I personally go about running drills and firing this gun in a more effective way that increases your speed as well as your accuracy. So, first and foremost, a basic grip. Airsoft guns is not as big of a deal, but when it comes to real firearms, which I use this as a training tool for, it is important that we have a few fundamentals down. One, you have a dominant hand and a non-dominant hand. Every person does, even if you're ambidextrous. And you have a dominant eye and a non-dominant eye. That's not quite as important. What is important is this. Decide which hand you are capable of isolating your trigger finger a little better with. For me, it is my right hand. Now, that gives us a few bits of information. One, my trigger hand is going to be held a little differently than my support hand. Your support hand is actually the most important hand when it comes to real firearms, but when it comes to airsoft, they're pretty much equal. So, when I go to present an airsoft replica that is a handgun, a few things have to be locked in. Your index. I talked about this in the last video. Go ahead and check that. I'll link that, or there'll be a card up here. But your index needs to be repetitive, repeatable, and consistent. Why? Because too many people look at the sights. We're not going to do that. We're going to look at the target, and this is just a reference, almost like a co-witness, to your index. And when I go to actually pull the trigger, it's going to be target focused. Here's another thing. When I go to actually grip the gun, I like to think about my support hand first. Obviously, your trigger hand is going to go inside your support hand, but I want my support hand to be super stable and repeatable as well. So, I'm not shooting this way or this way. I want to present straight forward. Why is that? Again, repeatable. Lots of people shoot FBI style, right? No. We want combat centered, and that way I can shift my legs and it'll be more repeatable. So, loose trigger hand. I'm going to use my support hand to fill in the difference here with my palm. And then my thumb, I like to think about as mirroring my non-trigger touching pointer finger or index finger. So that, again, I have somewhat equal pressure. Doesn't have to be a lot with an airsoft gun, right? Then when I'm ready to fire, my trigger finger is going to work independently. I have very little pressure. You could literally shoot the gun without your back hand. Okay? But it is important to remember, whatever you do, no matter where you want your finger to be placed on the blades, the idea is the gun doesn't move much. If you see a lot of dipping, like putting a lot of pressure on it, too much of your trigger hand. We've decided, loose trigger finger. Your support hand is making contact and wrapping around your hand. Some people like to do it in front of the trigger guard. Some people like to do it underneath the trigger guard. Just make sure it doesn't interfere with your trigger finger, right? And then my left hand is putting the pressure on to keep my index repeatable and my entire firearm from not swinging around. My left hand is putting pressure, but not a ton of pressure, on the opposite side of the trigger hand. And for me, my backhand is going to rest underneath the slide because we don't want slide bite when it comes back. And it's going to rest on top of my non-dominant hand. For this specific pistol, the blade likes to sit in the actual knuckle, because if I do a little, like, here's my knuckle trigger pull, nothing. But if I go to do it a little more on the pad of the finger, it has a tendency to want to dip. Okay? And if I do it a little more in even, I end up pulling it. So experiment with that. Depending on where you put your finger, it's going to either make the gun move one way or another, and that'll be dependent on your pistol specifically itself too. Now, I run a light. You don't have to. But that does basically eliminate any opportunity to put, some people like to put their finger on the other side of the trigger housing itself. Not my thing, but most important thing for me, I'm not putting pressure on my magazine release or on the magazine itself. Sometimes that affects how we feed as well. So, again, after I pull the trigger, I make sure that the slide reciprocates, and that when it comes down, it kind of rests itself where it wants to. If you put input in on the pistol, then you're going to start to do all kinds of crazy things, but more importantly, you're going to start to dip the gun in anticipation. Not ideal. Now, I'm running irons on this. If you're running a dot, it's a little different for tracking your dot, but a dot can tell you a lot of information. So, that's the fundamental on how I like to look at holding a pistol. Again, loose trigger hand, make good connection with your supporting hand, get my thumb perpendicular almost, or sorry, not perpendicular, parallel with my trigger finger. When I'm ready to shoot, I find the best spot on the pad of the finger for this specific firearm. Again, airsoft replica. I'm applying basically equal pressure. It's an airsoft gun after all. You don't have to go crazy and buckle down. And then I pull the trigger so it does not move the sights, and then I look to my next target, and my index will swing to follow. That's the basics. That right there is more information than I ever got when I started shooting, and it is something that many greats, well more suited to teaching this than I am, like Ben Steger or Joel Park, will kind of blaze the way, if you will, because this right here is just an analog to the real thing, and I use this as a means to train the real thing a little bit. So more on this build soon. Remember, guys, don't take yourselves too seriously. This is a fun hobby where we get to go shoot plastic pellets at each other in the woods. Don't take yourselves too seriously. Have a good time and be safe.